Welcome to the Team of One podcast, where we share the story of the solopreneur by exploring different ideas from different voices so you too can find a way to live life on your own terms. My name is Mo Choice, and in this episode, I spoke to Aleksandra Hertelendi, who shares her journey from corporate life to becoming a solopreneur, the importance of trusting the process, and equally so, embracing the transformation. Aleksandra introduces her book, The Art of Transformation, along with her plans to create impactful change in organizations. She's also big on personal development, and that makes for a lovely combination. Aleksandra is experienced, grounded, and a deep thinker, and I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do too. Peace. Welcome to the Team of One podcast. Today we are joined by Aleksandra Hertelendi. Who are you?
I'm a mom. I'm going to start there. I'm a mom of a wonderful 8-year-old. I'm a solopreneur who is helping organizations accelerate and realize the potential of their change and transformation. And I'm also a wife to a wonderful man who's of Portuguese origin. I'm half Polish, half Hungarian, so married to Portuguese, living in the UK. So that's more or less who I am today, in a nutshell.
Amazing.
And a fanatic of Ted Lasso. I'd like to add that.
Oh yeah, amazing. Okay, I love that. Believe. Okay, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Holistic. I always talk about everything that we do is holistic. We bring our whole selves if we want to do it properly, right? And it's like, and the way you introduce yourself was just holistic. It's like so much better, I think.
Indeed.
You identify as a solopreneur. You just did. How do you define solopreneur?
It's a really, really good question, because I think the difference between a solopreneur and an entrepreneur is solopreneur is not starting a business with the purpose of growing the business, but knowing that it is through their organization is how they can deliver value. So if they end up growing the business is quite accidental. Versus an entrepreneur, his mindset is all about the growth of the business and then, ultimately cashing out and something like this. So I think that's fundamentally the reason. I think a solopreneur has got that moment of realization that in order for them to be able to deliver value and also sometimes to sleep better, they need to go solo and create an entity out of their personal brand, if you want to call it that way.
Yes.
That will then deliver the value versus being in an organization or being part of anything else.
Very cool. I just had an insight as you shared that. The solo is I have the value, and the entrepreneur is the enterprise has the value. Right? So
Yeah.
It's like what I'm building is the value, is what's valuable, whereas solo, it's I'm valuable. And I think that's a really cool way to distinguish between the two.
Yeah.
Very cool. Why did you decide to go down this route?
It's not, I think I wanted to say it was never a considered decision, but it was, and I think it was bubbling since 2014. But I never quite acted on it. And what happened in 2014, I went on to an amazing retreat surrounded by solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and completely soaked up that atmosphere. What does it mean to be your own boss and have sort of your fate in your hand? But I'm a first generation immigrant in the UK. So I've moved to the UK because I was moved by the company that I was working for at the time. And as an immigrant, I didn't feel like I've got the permission to start my own business for a while. And also, frankly, I didn't have the courage to start my own business for a while because it does require a little bit of, extra in the bank to be able to take a risk on yourself. But what happened in 2023 is I have been made redundant from a role, and my whole team has been made redundant. So it wasn't just like I am made redundant, but the whole function that I was part of was made redundant. And it was such a momentous signal of, oh, leadership development is not needed, and this whole culture work is not needed in this massive organization. That I took a pause and asked, actually, what do I want more of in my life? How do I want to be leading and simultaneously showing my daughter? What does it mean to be a leader today? And do I have a choice to lead differently? And it ultimately all pointed to me becoming a solopreneur. And by then I had enough thought leadership also behind my back for me to actually say, yeah, this is the thing which is helping organizations with change and transformation that I can focus on. And I think the final dot on the I and the cross on the T was when I've got British citizenship, which sort of like gave me that final permission that I needed in order for me to start the business. So yeah, AHA Squared has been incorporated 2 years ago in June, the day after I've received my certificate of naturalization. And it wasn't much longer. Probably it was like, this is June, and by October I was already doing the work that I've set out to do as an organization. So if I sort of look at it, it wasn't a strict decision, and I'm going to do this no matter what, but it was a choice compared to the old ways of doing things. I do believe that transformation and change doesn't need to be that hard, and being in organization doesn't need to be that hard. But I also felt like I've got a choice of being my own boss. Not that I had bad bosses. My boss was actually pretty amazing in the organization that we were made redundant. But I wanted to focus on what really, really energized me and not focus on the politics of what doesn't.
Very common thing, right? And of course, for those who don't know Aleksandra, I mean, it's like a who's who of who you've worked with. BT and Network Rail and Lee Harrison and Virgin Media. Like it's super clearly you're valued and you've got lots of competence in this area, which is why so many of these big names trusted you. So I think I'm assuming that gave you the confidence also that you're able to navigate on your own. You don't need to have an employment.
Yes, and on top of it, it's that thing that I said about the thought leadership that I've got. It's not necessarily about being different or being unique in what I'm bringing to the market, but it's a methodology that I know and I've got enough evidence that it works. And that's the key thing that gave me the permission, that I knew that should someone employ me, I was able to give them the evidence of, in a similar situation, this is what happened with XYZ company. This is how we can cut through the noise. This is the 20% that's going to make the 80% difference. So I think it did require that 10 years from being inspired to become a solopreneur to actually build capability and experience, because I think experience is much more important in this case of knowing how to navigate this world of change and transformation.
And what were the struggles from when you decided to go solo? What were the big struggles?
I would say a couple. Because at the beginning you don't know what you don't know, and I did waste a lot of money, I would say, on paying for experts who can help me position myself or to help me sort of like, do I build a website? Do I, all those decisions that you need to make. And in hindsight, I could have saved myself a lot of money because I'm not doing anything differently compared to where I started those programs. But what they gave me was courage to be more vocal on LinkedIn, to post regularly on LinkedIn, to put my thought leadership out there. And you probably know I've literally just written a book.
Mm-hmm.
If I wouldn't have gone through those journeys and wouldn't have experienced the friction between how I felt I wanted to be versus how the sort of social media type of selling was pulling me towards, I wouldn't have found my voice in between. So there's always a benefit of those journey that you feel like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have gone through this. So that's one thing. The other thing that people underestimate is, and this is so typical with any other solopreneurs that I speak to, is we are masters of our craft. Yeah, so, the moment you introduce me to someone who is already going through change and transformation, I can sit down with them, have 10, 15 minutes conversation, and we are moving somewhere. But as a solopreneur, you need to learn the craft of how do you build your own pipeline? How do you build your own opportunities? And everyone is an expert out there, wants to sell it to you, while at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily work. So, and at the end of the day, it's trial and errors. It's like transformation. Yeah, like in transformation, it's a complex thing. You experiment, you see, does this work? Not really. Or it sort of works, but it's not quite delivering as much as I hope so. So I think all in all, it's all, at the end of the day, it's my own transformation. What I'm going through from moving from corporate into solopreneurship. Of I have had to experiment quite a lot as to what works when it comes to business development. And have I cracked it yet? I wouldn't say so. Yeah, so that's sort of the ongoing experiments. But I have to give my credit that, immediately I've landed quite a long-term contract that first started as a 3-month contract. Then it was a 6-month extra. Then it was another 6-month extra. So I was sort of like, I can sort of like leave myself off the hook, because fundamentally, was I going in the right direction? Yes. But it's always nice to, talk to that voice in your head about what's the even better if. Which happens often in this household.
Thank you for sharing all that. So if we talk about the two things, the first was, and this is very common, I hear this with a lot of people, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of ideas about how you can navigate solopreneurship. I remember when I started, it was like, do I need to build a course? Do I need to learn advertising? Do I need to become a content creator? Do I need to write a book? Do I need to do all of those things? Do I need to be on every platform? And then I found that I would, if something sounded exciting, I would be drawn to it, and I would end up investing in that idea. But like you said, I think it takes time. I built a webinar funnel on LinkedIn where we run a monthly webinar. And I said to Sarah at the time, who I asked to build it with me, I said, we might fail for 2 years, but we have to be completely committed to the idea, and then we'll find a way. And I think this is what I say to a lot of solopreneurs. I go, if you're committed to learning advertising, go learn advertising. If you're committed to writing a book, go write a book. If you're committed to building a course, go build a course. If you're committed to creating content, commit to that until you figure it out, because it's all figure outable. Who said that? Maria Forley, or whatever her name is. It's all figure out. You can figure it out because it all works. We can see it all works because lots of people have done well in all those areas. And I think my biggest problem was I didn't fully commit to anything. I dabbled in it. And I paid to try and find a shortcut. Like, oh, if I pay this money, I'll get that done quicker. And I see a lot of people making the same mistake. Is that similar to what you?
Good question. I think that something along these lines. So I'm sort of reflecting on the first course that I have paid for, and at that time, I honestly didn't know, like, what does it mean to be a solopreneurship. So you go where the energy goes, and the energy was lovely by the from the person who was running this course. But it felt like that I've paid, I've entered a 12-month course, and what I actually needed from this course was the first 3 months, and then I should have left. Um, um, because in the first 3 months, it really helped me to put in the structure and some of the systems that I needed in order to be able to, okay, so this is how I need to operate as a solopreneur. I remember to this day, first couple of days of solopreneurship, and you're so conditioned to operating the same way as you are in corporate, which is checking your email, looking at your calendar, almost like wanting to fill your calendar with meetings. So this sort of like this busyness conditioning that that
Yes.
some of us who are coming out of corporate have to shed in order to be really effective as solopreneurs. So it did help me, that course, to put in some structures and almost like transition this identity to solopreneurship. So it was great from that perspective, but it was 9 months too long for what I
For what you
needed,
needed. Mm.
because
What?
that was a much more B2C focused course. And it was, again, my realization once I was in it, that like, this is all lovely, that these tactics are all fantastic, but doesn't quite work in the market that
For what
I'm
you?
operating in. And if I wouldn't have seen the contrast, I wouldn't have then experimented with what works. So you can always, you can always see the difference, but it did give me the structure. Um, and the second course that I've paid for, which was very much focused on LinkedIn and how to get my voice out in LinkedIn, that course gave me a lot of fantastic connections that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to I wouldn't have come across those people otherwise. But I think, again, fundamentally in that course, it and this is the one that I sort of felt like, when you said the shortcut thing, what it was selling me is how to shortcut, or how to outsmart LinkedIn and LinkedIn algorithm. But we are at that age where with generative AI and agentic AI, it's moving so fast, that we are running to stand still. So it was a very, very conscious decision for me to stop the race and actually choose a different way of being just present on LinkedIn and providing value than going for the likes, or going for the views, or that perspective. It's all learning at the end of the day.
I agree. I think that's a really good attitude too, Alexandra. It's like every time I've wasted time or money, it's taught me something about myself or about other people or about the world that's useful. I think the only time I've wasted money is when I didn't, when I wasn't fully present to the opportunity, right? Like, even like, the only way you get things out of something is if you're fully present to it and you're trying to learn from it and you're trying to understand it. And I think that's worth its weight in gold already on its own.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, I'm assuming it's the same in transformation. Like, not everything's going to work, not every idea is going to land, but it's like everything is progressive. Even
Yeah,
if it doesn't work, it's progressive.
absolutely. And I do talk about it with my clients, is because we are conditioned to these like big numbers and KPIs. And when it comes to transformation, that those are the wrong metrics to put on ourselves, because in transformation, it's a term, and it sounds horrible, so I'm not even sure it's English, but it's directional correctness is the term that I use. Is like, is this going in the right direction? Because there's no such thing as perfection, especially when you are experimenting. And transformation is a series of experiments. Is a series of innovations, micro innovations, macro innovations inside the organization. But the measure of success isn't, this is the we have managed to increase our customer base by 50%. That's not how you should be measuring progress at transformation. It is like looking at a bigger piece vision, which is, are we able to deliver value not just to this percentage of this country, but a much higher percentage of this country? And then you check, like, are we moving towards this? Yeah, because that's how you then not start over explaining or over protecting and what's happening. Yeah, because if you are looking at the numbers, anything can explain. Yeah, like, we didn't hit this KPIs because X, Y, and Z was too hot or something like this.
Right.
But fundamentally, if we are looking at what we are hoping to achieve, are we moving in the right direction? So if you were to put a trend line on everything that's happening, it's the trend line that you are looking at, and not this. That will be happening. There will be setbacks. And that's fundamentally what I'm trying to apply to
As a solopreneur also,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
it's the same thing for me. It's like progression is the key, and sometimes the setback is progressive, actually, in and of itself, because it helps me develop resilience or get used to failure. Even, by the way, that's a massive thing. It's like we want to value failure because it's so useful. I love that. So you've reached the stage where you're satisfied with your progress, I'm assuming, as a solopreneur. What's the next level for you?
Ooh, you are asking September. And such a good question, and the reason why I'm sort of posing, and you already know this, is that I've dedicated July to writing a book, because I just seen a window of opportunity of, it's the UK, nothing happens in the summer in the UK, but I'm pretty sure that's the same case for the rest of the Europe. So have managed to write a book, and for anyone listening, and you think like, oh my goodness, she has written a book in a month, don't forget that it was 5 years in the making as well. So there's much more research behind it. It's just a bum on seat and focusing on writing the amounts that needed to be written every single day that made it happen. Where my mind is going with regards to September is, I want to start operating in more partnerships instead of operating as a solopreneur. And I'm still, it might sound dissonant, but let me explain. Instead of putting the weight on myself and myself only to find the customers and to get my voice out there, I've done it on my own for the last 2 years, and it took me far, and it created me opportunities, but I failed to move to even better if I want to start working in people who have got complementary capabilities and working as a collective, as a loose collective of going to the market. Like, what I'm doing is really, really applicable when it comes to AI transformation, AI implementation, because what I'm focusing on is, like, if you want to make that successful, how do you need to change inside? So that's what I want to focus on from September onwards, is building on those friendships that I've already have and moving them into partnerships to deliver more value in a much more holistic and comprehensive way to some scale-ups and startups.
It sounds really interesting. I love this. I always talk about solopreneurship as you don't have to be alone, but your path is your own. And so we can have collectives of solopreneurs or collectives, and loose. I like the term you use there, loose collective. It's like it's a collective for this purpose, and it's temporary potentially. It could be longer term, but for this particular purpose, it's a temporary collective. I like that idea. How are you going to go about doing this? What's the strategy?
So the strategy behind it is, using, and it sounds like I'm pushing my book. That's not the intention here. But considering I have put in so much effort and research into this book, which summarizes the art of transformation and the fundamental premise of it, that science alone won't get you there, that there's this element of experimentation in every single transformation. What I'd like to focus on initially, because one of the key things, or one of my biggest learnings is however much I love working from home, I build my connections best when I'm face to face, and I'm around the table and in conversation with people, and it becomes much more organic in a conversation, because you've got more space and more time. The challenge with online calls is that you're always giving yourself a time frame of, we've got 30 minutes or we've got an hour, and therefore there's not that permission to go over by 10 minutes or 15. And you've got this permission when you are face to face. So I want to run a couple of roundtables for a select CEOs and CHROs of scale ups at the back of the book, to again create values like you will be transforming. There's literally not a company who wouldn't be transforming. But let us give you a couple of tools that you can immediately implement, and let's have a discussion about it. So that's sort of like the thinking and the premise.
And of course, I mean, well, I mean, you've put again. This is an important thing Aleksandra talked about. That you don't write a book in the time you're writing a book. You write a book with all the stories and the transformations that you've created yourself, and then putting it down on a piece of paper is the last part of it. Actually, the book's being written a long time ago, probably even before you realize it's being written.
It is.
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody, this idea that I could probably have a book forming, even though I haven't sat and thought about it or sat down and written it. And what I love, if you follow Aleksandra on LinkedIn, you'll see that she's talking about what she's doing while writing her book in her content.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It was one of those really. It was literally the last day of my contract, and I have been invited to an event. And the event was focusing on change and transformation. And I knew back then that if I want to do a personal transformation, and research is showing this, the best way to make sure that it actually happens is you make a public commitment about it.
Yeah.
I managed to make a commitment to a room of 45 people, all of whom are like CHROs, heads of everything.
Amazing.
That I'm going to write a book. So that's how this started. Amazingly, and I think I've written a post about it a day or two ago. Amazingly, this commitment to have a go at something for 30 days gives you two key things. One is I feel like I'm okay to claim that the title of an author now. Not just because I've written a book, but even if you have written a book, you can go and say, well, I've just written a book, and then never do anything about it, or never publish it, or never take it further. And I haven't yet made a decision, how far do I want to take it in publishing, or whether I want to self-publish or just Kindle or everything like this, which many people ask me about. But the point that I'm trying to make is like, I have now built in, I'm now okay to claim the identity of an author, because I was looking at it for 30 odd days. Well, it's day 29 today. So I've got one more day to go, include tomorrow. So that's one thing. But the other thing is you are observing yourself as an author, as this thing that you want to transition into. So in itself, it's a methodology of actually, I'm like, this is what I've learned about myself in the process.
Yes.
And it was the best thing that could have happened to me yesterday, where I was low in energy and high in emotions after, if anyone is watching it, England women's team won the European championships, or the Euro Cup. And it was amazing to watch. And I'm saying this like, I'm half Polish, half Hungarian. Yes, I've got a British passport, but it made me so proud as to what those ladies have achieved. But because I was low on sleep, high on emotions, I wouldn't have been able to to write in any other time. But because by then I have been writing for 28 days, I did find the time to write.
Kept you going.
It
Yeah.
just kept me going. And
Amazing.
and that's that's the power of a public commitment, and you are just like not breaking that promise to yourself once you have managed to move behind your inertia for so many days. So there's some benefits to it.
I love that, and there's a couple of principles from that. It's, first of all, if no matter how I feel, I will do it anyway. And the other thing is, the more effort you put into something, the harder it is to give up. And that goes for any relationship with anything. And so I think you're speaking to those two principles in there as well. What's the biggest challenge with this idea that you've got about using your book, creating these roundtables, being more face-to-face, influencing through these conversations? What's the big risk?
And there's always a risk of not finding the right people to be in the room. But I don't see it as such a massive risk because of everything that we've discussed already today. It's always information, it's always learning. It's the thing that I'm willing to try and I have the energy for. And if there's one key thing that I've learned about my journey so far, is something that you've said earlier on, is to go not just where the focus goes, because where focus goes, energy goes, but almost like trusting my gut feel of, is this feeling right? Is there energy coming up as I'm talking about this thing that I'm just about to start? Is this something that if I wake up at 4 a.m. I have an idea about? It tends to happen with me quite often. So it's this thing that I'm willing to try is something that came up as part of this process of me really, really going deep and listening and journaling. And so if it doesn't work, it's okay, because it's a learning process.
Really cool.
That's all.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you for guiding me through all that. And we started with this idea that using your experience and understanding what you were able to do, and understanding how you were able to do it. And obviously you tried the traditional route, let's say, of going through a career, an employment, and then you decided you wanted to try it a different way. And that was a couple of years ago, and you landed on your feet pretty quickly. And we talked about, I mean, there's so many synergies between the work you do and solopreneurship, actually, fundamentally, in terms of exploring the unknown and trying to navigate the unknown and taking whatever you can and using it to take the next step and to keep progressing. I think that's a lovely alignment in terms of the two stories. And then we talked about how you want to now explore more face-to-face connection, create a different kind of space with the right people in the right room to talk about transformation and to show the value really that you can bring, so that you can start to build things in an even better way and in an even greater way, and how it's okay to explore that. And even if things don't work, how you were able to use that to move forward. And probably that idea is what makes you really good at what you do. Is there anything that you want to say to close off on the discussion? Anything else you want to share?
Just something that sort of like came to my mind that as you were summarizing our conversation, which was, we often say, like, I coach people as well, and one of the things that we say in coaching is trust the process. Yes, it's just the process that, as you go from one thing to another, there's something happening and you might not be seeing it. And I think that's sort of the summary of everything that we've talked about today is this notion of trusting the process. Because while I feel unsuccessful in one things that I've experimented and more successful in others, one key realization that I had with speaking to a couple of people that I haven't met for a while but have been following me, and I didn't even know that they were following me on LinkedIn, was that when you are putting yourself out there, you are creating change, you are creating transformation without knowing that you are impacting others. And I would just say, while it's difficult at days, and while there are days that I question myself, and why there are days where a corporate job seems exciting again, it's the trusting the process that actually, that we are creating impact. Yes, it might not show on my business account on days, but on others it does, and it is that trust and the belief that's important as part of this journey, like
Very
in
cool.
transformation.
Yeah. I that's a really great summary, actually, and maybe a good thing for people to think about is, if you don't trust the process, why? Why don't you trust the process? What is it? Is it trusting yourself? Is it trusting yourself in how to deal with the unknown and deal with failure? And really to look at that rather than finding, sometimes it's internal rather than looking for answers externally. And I think that's really, really key. Where can people find you?
Please do look me up on LinkedIn. So I spell my name Aleksandra with KNS, so Aleksandra Hertelendi. You can also find me on my website, which is www.AHA2.co.uk. And that's the best place to find me.
Perfect. And you have something you'd like to share with the listeners too, I believe?
Absolutely. So, we've talked about the book by now quite a lot. So for the listeners of your podcast, Mo, I've got a present, which is a chapter or a part of my book, which is focusing on state. And the background story to it is, when we are going through our own change or own transformation, we typically start with telling ourselves a better story, like really like, oh, I'm going to be now, I am now going to be this podcast an entrepreneur aficionado, and it's just going to happen like this. But you and I, we already know that becoming an author or a podcaster doesn't start with just a sort of like decision that, it's just, I'm telling myself a different story. It starts with the state. It starts with, have I got the right systems around me? Have I got the right mindset in order to be able to start on this journey? And that's fundamentally what this chapter / part is focusing on. So it's going to be available for your listeners.
Amazing.
It's a present from me.
I can't wait to read that. And it's called The Art of Transformation, your book, is that right?
Correct.
Which is a super, super cool name. Thank you so much. We'll put all the information in the session notes as usual, so you can click on the links there. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending it with me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Mo. It's always a pleasure talking to you, but I've really had fun today. So thank you so much for allowing me to look at my leadership in a different stance. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being you and for being so open. And I'll see you everybody soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
The difference between surviving and thriving often comes down to a single shift in perspective. Maybe today's conversation sparked something for you, or maybe it confirmed what you already knew. I'm going to keep exploring what it takes to reach the next level. For more solopreneur stories, hit subscribe. And if you know someone who'd be perfect for the team of one, please introduce us on LinkedIn. See you next time. Peace.